All right. Well, oh, why am I doing this? I could show the scene when let's see. Yeah, it's me. All right. Well, I watched a video of Gary's. It's after these ones I'm going to watch live now. And to not entirely to me, but just in general. But he did look at the Wikipedia explanation for locality, but instead of absorb it, really, of course, he trashed it the whole time. And the main thing, Gary, is that you don't seem to understand this term is not a theory, right? Meaning it's not making assumption. The term locality is not saying that the universe obeys locality or rejects locality. It's a word you use to describe your system. And as we know, you're like, well, it's stupid. Of course it's local. Okay. So here's why that's an issue, all right? I've explained it to you before. You said, oh, I only believe what I believe because I watched a documentary. No. I believe what I believe ever since I was a teenager because I got my ideas about quantum mechanics in college in physics class. And I didn't believe everything I was told back then, just as I don't now. And so, I wasn't accepting everything, but I got my ideas back then. You can eat that cardboard. You watched so many documentaries, you said. I thought that was pretty ridiculous. And you said no evidence regarding locality because you don't understand. It's not a theory. And here's a shocker. I also want to preserve locality. If we ever get to realism, maybe you'll understand why these things are discussed in this context. So the problem with locality is this. I like math. I play with math as a hobby. A while ago, I thought, hey, what would the radial equation and radial coordinates for a sine wave be? What would that look like? So I tried to do it. Tried to solve it, couldn't, and I looked it up and found out there is no solution to that except for brute force. I mean, mathematically, you can't separate the theta and the r. You got theta and or r on both sides. So I just play with that kind of stuff for fun. In your system, you're just having us believe, no, the photon or electron or whatever, the particle, could go through one slit and you could get the same pattern from it bouncing with the electrons in the edge of the slit. It'll work out. Math isn't like that. It doesn't just work out. And here, there's plenty of mathematical explanations, but just here's a common sense reason to be worried about locality in your system. The reason is when you fire the particle and it goes through one of the slits, because you're also going to end up wanting to preserve realism, and the problem is the realism and the locality together. There are ways to unify them. I think I have an idea of how they could both be preserved. Doesn't mean they both will be, though. My gut doesn't get to decide how the universe works. The reason we know that the math, whatever math you figure out, isn't going to work of the particle going through one slit is specifically because of the whole purpose and weirdness of the two-slit experiment. The fact is, where the particle goes depends on where the other slit is. So the particle goes through here, it makes bright bands, and it totally avoids the dark band. And if you move this other slit, where those dark bands are, that's places that no photons fall. That changes. The dark bands move. Where no photon falls moves if you just move the other slit. Now, how is that possible if the particle's going through one slit? If the edge of the slit tells that particle where to go, or not tells, but interacts with it and makes it go a particular place, that should be unaffected by where the other slit is, unless there's a violation of locality, and somehow the edge of this slit is in communication with that other slit, and somehow it's coordinated. And that's the problem. There's this coordination. Now, the quantum wave idea, which is just a proposal, because we don't go into science knowing the answer, we go seeking the answer. Is trying to preserve locality, because a wave can hit a barrier, and if there's two slits in the barrier, propagate just in those places, because the wave hits the whole barrier and is masked out. So suddenly locality's fine, because a wave can do that, right? The problem is that the particle only strikes one place on the target detector on the other side. At most one place. If it gets hit, it runs into the screen. It does. So there's a coordination between the two slits in the screen that is difficult to explain. And you can't say it's explainable with the one slit experiment, because the pattern is changing if you move the other slit. How can there be an interference pattern from the one slit experiment that's affected by the two slit experiment when you're putting the particles through one at a time? And that's why locality is an important thing. And the reason I believe it's all really waves is because of the locality. The superposition issue is the part that relates to superposition, or even more so the idea where they say the particle might be in two places at once. Because trying to save locality, we get the wave. But then, what about the particle? What's the locality of the particle? What's the reality of the particle? The wave is going through both waves. Where's the particle that whole time? And you can either say, well, there really isn't a particle until the wave that we surmise interacts with the screen, and it creates the artifact we know as a particle collision. So what's happening in the meanwhile? Well, either it doesn't exist and there's a collapse, which seems kind of silly, but it's on the table, or a many histories, and it somehow goes through both slits. And that violates the realism. Both of those violate a realism. The pilot wave theory maintains the realism, comes up with another mathematics that could possibly explain the interference, because the pilot wave is the thing that goes through both slits. The problem there is it violates locality, because there is a coordination between that pilot wave, which is throughout the whole universe, and that particle that's guiding it to where it's going to go. Right? And so we have a spooky action at a distance. Of course, there's other ways to explain that. Maybe time truly is reversible. Determinists have a lot of options open to them about how waves might propagate back in time and whatnot, and help guide an event to its occurrence, cause the thing, an event backwards in time causes the cause, and all that's quite weird too. And it's very hard, if you're careful like other people besides you are, to navigate the two-slit experiment and not give up either your concept of realism or your concept of locality. Saying that you want both of them, well, you do appeal to authority, Gary, but you don't have the decency to make it any other authority but yourself. You're the authority, and you feel it in your gut, and you promise us the math will work out. Well, I have some experience with math, and we're not even going to get any math from your system, because you're not going to do that. And if you try, you'll find, no, you can't make one slit interactions explain why moving the other slit affects the pattern. That's never going to happen. That's like picking yourself up by your bootstraps 3 feet off the ground. Not going to happen. I can predict with confidence that that can't happen. If the pattern changes because of the other slit, then physically the other slit is involved, and it's away from the first slit, and the screen is away, so there's issues of locality. And as soon as you say, okay, something went through both slits, whether it's a pilot wave, which I know you don't say that, but then you have this problem with realism. You want to say, I'm going to be real and local, and I'll just fuck around on saying math is going to work out. Math is going to back me up. How's that going to work? You got an equation? Who needs an equation? I got an authority. Gary and Mendham. All right. So having said that, let's see what Misty Puro 314 is all about. I'm sure that'll be just a joy to watch.
So anyway, this whole disagreement is basically because I see a certain expedience in getting to a more direct conversation about direct evidence, and he wants to have a conversation in a general sense using vague terminology for vaguely described concepts like wormholing or he keeps bringing up tunneling microscopes, different things, and these things aren't proven in anything. What he's claiming is taking place isn't what.
See, I don't recall bringing up tunneling microscopes all the time, but I could because they exist and they're physical. A guy had a theory, he said, hey, quantum mechanics means this should be possible, and he tried and it worked, unlike anything in your theory. So that's pretty impressive. You want to trash it, I wonder why that could be. Is it because it works or because it doesn't work? Well, since it does work, I guess it's not because it doesn't work. Follow that logic there? And remember, not everything is a theory and an assertion. Some things are terms we use to discuss theories and assertions.
What the thing itself is actually doing, and that's the problem with of using these elements of infrastructure as if they're established elements of physics when they're not. They're what they claim to be in name only, not in actual proven function.
So, Gary,
tunneling microscopes are, in fact, used. They take images. You can get very good images of not every kind of object, but metallic objects, for example. So you can see the molecules on the metallic object, and they use that in industrial processes now because it's like 20 years old technology. So God only knows what your standard is of working. You have no working thing to offer, just your criticism and your own personal authority.
You take yourself to be playing a serious game, and the rest of us are playing.
The very fact that you would say serious game and the rest of you would, the very fact that you did like serious is silly or stupid just points out my exact argument.
No, that's not. I wasn't saying that it was silly or stupid. You're silly or stupid to think that everything you do is so serious. It's not. And you want to pick out one joke where I'm trying to be friendly and say, see, you're glib. And you're fucking talking to Brett Keane. That seems pretty glib. I don't think you're saying that that's absolutely the best thing in the world you could do right now. You've made a rational decision about the very best thing you could do for the whole world, and it's talk to Brett Keane.
My argument is the world isn't so bad. The crimes committed against the sentient organisms are so horrific that.
And Great Tex tried to call me on this, or did call me on it, but there's a misunderstanding. I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to Brett Keane. I'm saying you shouldn't pretend that all you do is useful things.
Even me having this conversation is an insult to their pain. That's how bad it is. It's grotesque.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. So you're grotesque.
And yes, so you people are, it's already bad enough that I'm not a terrorist. I mean, I've already not done my job, in a sense, because it's that bad. So, yeah, your glibness is insanely glib. Yes.
Well, who has time to be a terrorist when you're chit-chatting with Brett Keane?
I think it's glib to do things like call me a pantheist.
Right. So he thinks that's taking his philosophy too far. So if I survey the majority of college graduates,
Uh-oh.
do you think you're going to say of college graduates?
Well, this isn't good. Am I having internet problems? Try to reload it. Let's check the time. 2:59 in case.
Majority of college graduates, let's just say, in science degrees, and I asked them, do you think electrons are conscious? What percentage do you think you're going to say yeah? Do you think consciousness exists outside of brains? What percentage do you think you're going to say yes?
Oh, wow. That actually is just an appeal to authority when it's convenient for you. What are they going to say? What do you think they're going to say about quantum mechanics is bullshit and your theory of tons is the way to go? What percentage do you think, Gary? I would wager not many. Not a big number. That wouldn't make me a pantheist either. And it's also not, of course, what I have proposed. I don't think electrons are conscious. I believe parameciums are conscious. Maybe you could, I don't know, look up the difference of a fucking electron and a paramecium. Okay, besides the 4 billion years of evolution since paramecium seem to have been born, there's a lot of other obvious differences. For one, parameciums have a lot of electrons in them. They're much bigger than an electron. The closest thing I've ever said to the lie you just told is that, it's hard to switch here, to the lie you just told, is that consciousness has to be a result of laws of physics. And in that sense, it's out there, just like magnetism is out there. And as it happens, all rocks are made of atoms that are magnetic. But not all rocks are those little tiny magnets, the atoms and molecules aligned so that it adds up to something we can see at our scale. When you have an iron magnet, you got the billions of little tiny iron atoms all aligned the same way so that their magnetism adds up. And so we see the effects of magnetism. And as anybody that believes you can reduce the universe to material interactions, right, would have to say that any phenomena here is made of something fundamental in physics, right? The elements, photons, the forces of gravity, and whatever other forces there may be. Excuse me. So obviously, consciousness has to reduce to the laws of physics. Now, which of those laws of physics play a part in the electron? I don't know, because all I've ever claimed is that living things are conscious. But you lied, right? Living things are conscious, and you said electron. And none of us are going to believe you're that stupid. It looks a lot more like a lie. But
So
you
I'm
like
being
lying.
reckless or sloppy.
Do it all the
Believe
time.
My responsibility to be fair to you. That's sort of what you're saying. I'm sort of being, I'm dissing you in this trivial way without any substance. And I'm saying, no,
Yeah.
the substance is, I think this is just insane kind of thinking to look at evolution and think that it's possible that organisms were thinking when there's no evidence of their thinking. I just think that's, and certainly no evidence of them feeling. If there's no point in feeling. If you can't think about what you're feeling, if you can't consider the feelings and act on them, then what would be the point of having them? And so it just...
Well, I see it differently. I see if the fundamental laws of physics allow for a subjective experience, and we know they do, because there exists in the universe at least one subjective creature, and I believe more. But I know that I have this subjective experience, right? I have a subjective experience, right? So at least one part of the universe can have that phenomena happen, right? At least one. What's the evidence that any other one had it? It's the behavior. Same way I could figure out a fly or any other bug is alive, I can apply it to little teeny tiny bugs. And the fact that they have desires, yeah, well, we're speculating just like we are with each other human. Jesus. Hold on. Take this in the other room, you little destroyer of room. It's over there. Go get it. This little chew snout. Now, the way I see it is more like the universe having these tendencies. We can look at the relationship we have to other things. And I don't know if consciousness, I'm sure consciousness as I understand it as a human, it probably doesn't extend outside the mammal kingdom. But a conscious that's similar and also should be called a consciousness is in the birds and it's just a matter of how far down the tree of life you go. Well, I've been over this many times with you. You, again, are just the authority about where it stops. Not that you're absolutely sure. And you don't seem to understand. There's people still right now today that think it it doesn't even include all the mammals. They're idiots, but so are you.
It blows up the logic of evolution as a theory. So that's why I call it pantheism, because it's a violation of evolutionary law.
What it is that I believe that whatever this life thing is, it goes down to physics.
Well, again, this life thing, and I've just repeated, made tons and tons of videos saying this life thing isn't what we think it is, okay? We're a colony organism. We're not even really technically alive. If a cell is a living thing, we're not a living thing, because we're made of living things. The living things are slaves to our form and structure, and we're electric conduits. Well,
I'm pretty much sure this is another thing where you've adopted one of my views where I have been fond for years of saying we are a colony of bacteria, and I use that as evidence that the behavior that we have is just eukaryotic behavior. And so any behavior we have, we can't claim to have it, and the parts don't have it. A brick church is made of bricks. And you could go, but it's a church, so it's different. No, it's made of bricks. Its quality that it has, the way it feels to the touch, the way it smells is bricks.
electrical wires. We're not the same thing mechanically. A cell and a communal organism is not...
See, you don't listen well. Actually, a cell has a very complicated set of chemical pathways that it obviously uses to do information processing so that it can act alive. Now, you don't have to agree with me, but you also don't have to pretend I never said that, except for, oh, wait, you do have to pretend that, because acknowledging other people's positions is a supreme danger to your own.
the same thing mechanically. They can't... It's irrational to assume they have common functions. They're fundamentally mechanically different things.
If there's elements of it in the physics, what else could it come from?
So again, this idea that because a brain exists, it must go all the way down to the physics. Because teeth exist, then photons have teeth. This is not good logic. You can't use reduction.
I didn't say that. The reason I think they have consciousness is because of the way they behave. We watched their behavior and figured out they're alive. What behavior were we looking for, genius? The behavior of a living creature, which is intentions and desires. If you can't see that, well, I'm not surprised. You're sheltered.
Reductionism is an excuse to frickin' shove consciousness into nothing. And again, the evidence is overwhelming. I could go over all the evidence, but I mean, the fact that we can become unconscious is the evidence is right there. The very fact that it's so easy to turn it off means it can't be a function of the physics.
Reductionist argument, any materialist, a non-woo person would have to believe that, or something like it.
Non-woo-woo person would have to believe in what? The reductionism that that electrons have brains. No. That they feel I'm having a good day. No, they don't.
And you mischaracterize it. Right?
Well, how am I mischaracterizing? You just said it. I mean, you just said consciousness has to go all the way down because unlike all the other features that we have that don't go all the way down, somehow brains go all the way down.
And you do that on and on and on. You say, I believe things I don't believe.
Well, I'm just saying that you clearly believe that my consciousness is still on even when it's off. Because that's the only way I could just be tuning it in or something. If it's just a consciousness tuner or something, then the consciousness would still be on.
Right. So you say it's a really important game, so you have to fight hard. That's fine. I'm not going to complain about that. I was asking.
I have to fight for the priorities, and so again, that's you're not understanding either. And the priorities is actually doing something productive or constructive. And so yeah, that's what you figure out is are these guys in my if you're on a football team, right? You have to measure the rest of the players. I even made this argument to somebody else the other day. This metaphor. But I mean, you're not going to.
Yeah, you know what, Gary? Screw you because.
Quarterback and risking breaking your back to do this perfect sack if you know nobody else in your.
But screw that, Gary. Because you're acting like you're taking stuff seriously, but we know you don't entirely take stuff seriously. And we're talking about, hey, you and I agree on IRV. We just passed IRV here in Maine. Maybe it could go across the nation. You don't want to work on that because we disagree too much about whether paramecium have certain sense organs or not. Fuck you. Yeah, they have simple. They're not humans. They're not writing Webster's dictionaries, genius. I'm not saying that. You could probably figure out I'm not saying that. And I told you I'm not saying that for a decade now. But you got really, really thick membranes on your ear balls.
Team is doing anything. The wide receivers are picking their nose, and nobody else is going to do shit or invest shit. So yeah, it's not the time. It's not the battle to fight. And I'm just saying that as soon as my team becomes shit, I got to find a new team. There's no point in me playing with those guys. I got to find guys who want to play a game.
You to admit that I'm being honest about my opinion. Stop calling me dishonest about my opinion. I'm not trying to play a word game.
I'm not calling you dishonest about your opinion. I'm calling you dishonest about how you present evidence for your opinion, and the fact that your opinion is stated as a fact when it's not a fact, when you haven't done your job of first arguing for your presumptions. If you're going to have axioms, you have to defend them when somebody says, I don't accept your axioms.
I'm defining these words in good.
No, you've said that I was lying, saying things that I know are true, that I know are saying things that I know are true or not true, and playing a rhetorical game. That's what lying means. That's what you've been doing. When I call you a liar, it's because you've been saying things I know from 10 years of experience with you, and having had the conversations before, that you understand my position better than you let on your channel. What you tell your audience is something different. That's a lie. Okay?
Fake. I believe they're technically accurate and an intelligent person.
And what you just described is that I'm a liar because I'm so wrong. And I'm a bad person because I'm a liar, and that's bad character. And those don't follow. What a lie really is does mean bad character when you know the case to be something and you say something else. I'm not doing that. You just admitted I'm not doing that. But guess what? You are doing that.
Of your intelligence could understand them. I could be wrong. Maybe you're...
Yeah, well, again, you keep arguing as if I don't understand the words. What I'm saying is I'm not going to have, if I'm going to have an argument with a theist, I'm going to argue evolution and the facts. I'm not going to argue how tall is the Holy Ghost. And then he starts making arguments about the politics between the Holy Ghost, Jesus, and God, and who's really the king, and who's really the boss.
But the word locality isn't like that. You understood it when you took a few seconds to look at it. You thought the fact that the word had to be disambiguated was some sort of thing against the word, which is just, it's where you're just not that bright. You just have to face the fact that you're obviously bright in some sense doesn't mean you're really bright in every sense. Right.
I'm not going to get into some bullshit argument like that. I'm not going to use those premises as premises for debate about the meaning of life, because they're unproven nonsense. So I'm just saying...
Locality is not something that has to be proven. It's an idea. Whether the universe does obey locality or doesn't, that has to be proven. You have to prove it. You think you can just assume it because it's silly for it not to obey it, but it doesn't work like that, because we have some experiments that show that there's something weird going on that questions locality. You can preserve locality, and remember, because you don't think too deep on this, I want to preserve locality. I believe locality is preserved. I don't believe there's action at a distance. I don't believe entangled particles are action at a distance. I believe the wave is the real object. So there's realism and there's locality. You don't believe there's any waves. So I haven't seen you present anything that tries to preserve locality and realism in the face of the two-slit experiment. Instead, what we see is a bunch of denial and an ego so big that you are your own appeal to your own authority.
Until you demonstrate with something called hard evidence that these things, that something can go faster than the speed of light, or something can do...
No, you demonstrate any of your theory with hard evidence. You're just speculating and saying, my theory makes more sense, therefore it must be true. No, that's not the case.
Why should I accept the terminology and be obligated to say, okay, yes, wormholing exists, when I'm saying, no, it doesn't?
The term locality is not saying wormholing exists. It's not saying it doesn't exist. The word locality is not saying that locality is a real thing or a wrong thing. The word locality is a concrete definition that you can use with your system to go ahead and say, hey, guess what? The world doesn't obey, the universe doesn't obey locality. Or you can make a proof in some scientific experiments that prove, oh, it does obey locality. Or you could demonstrate locality doesn't really, the concept of locality doesn't capture the problem. Here's some new terms that capture the problem better. A term is not a philosophical position. It's something we use to compare our philosophical positions. But you're incomparable, right? You are totally beyond compare. And everything out of your mouth, even if it's changing and evolving, is at every moment of its evolution beyond compare to anything else. And it should not be subject to words from the regular universe while you talk to us with words.
Doesn't exist as you think it exists. That's for certain. There is a mechanical explanation. It has nothing to do with any kind of notion that something traveled faster than the speed of light.
Not intelligent enough. But I know they're comprehensible and technically deep.
I'm saying they're not technically detailed. I'm just saying to you is if you want to use it, if you want to use that vocabulary, use it with an explicit definition. Always tie it to a definition so we know exactly what you're saying. So when you say Heisenberg...
I made a whole fucking video. That video about the pilot wave shit. Okay, no, Daisy, no. This puppy, man, I'll tell you, she needs a lot of attention. But she does get a lot of attention, but she needs even more than that. What the fuck were you saying? Some stupid thing. Let's go back a couple seconds and see.
Flight.
Not intelligent enough. But I know they're comprehensible and technically detailed.
I'm saying they're not technically detailed. That's what I'm just saying to you is if you want to use it, if you want to use that vocabulary, use it with an explicit definition. Always tie it to a definition so we know exactly what you're saying. So when you say Heisenberg, you're not saying, well, we don't know what.
Oh, that's right. I made a whole video about that pilot wave thing, and the main reason was, one, it's a cool visualization for people that want to preserve that particle realism, like you. You're welcome. And but also, of course, it doesn't help you because your system's so incoherent that seeing any reality just threatens it to dissolve in a puff of soap film. But in that video, I specifically was talking about what locality means technically and what realism means technically, because that demonstration is also a good opportunity to do that. Plus, you went to the fucking Wikipedia for 5 minutes and figured out what it fucking meant. And you're going to tell me, it made no sense, man. No, you were just refusing to check it from your own emotional, very emotional fear of any other concept. I guess, other physical concepts aren't compatible with yours.
Where the photon is, or you're saying the photon doesn't have a location. So yes, you can use non-locality, I would say, for that purpose. But again, isn't this the rhetoric that automatically?
Okay, I believe in locality. I do not think we should get rid of locality. I believe something weird has to be happening, but even if it turns out that locality is violated, that it'll have to do with the fact that space isn't shaped the way we think. I believe that by definition, a thing will only directly influence something that's in its locale. Right, and so if that turned out not to be true, I would still probably prefer to interpret these folded space and kind of ideas, some idea that that those places are neighbors. They don't look like neighbors to us, but they are. But I'm not even saying that's happening. I'm saying here is a term by which, when there is more than one physical theory that we are comparing and discussing, as you hope to do, we will have terms to discuss that. But you won't have it. You say to discuss Gary's theory, you have to start by knowing everything else is bullshit. And you have an almost flat earth level of conspiracy on the part of the scientific establishment. Like they're not honestly trying to figure out what's going on. They're not just misguided or mistaken. They're liars. You simply reject the pictures shown to you that it's like obviously why someone would think this is a kind of lensing. Looks like a lens effect. It's sad, really.
Breaks because terminology like non-locality is used to describe different circumstances and then gets tied to hidden variables, and they're not the same conceptually, and the words aren't even literate descriptions of the circumstance.
You don't seem to have learned them. So I say that's lazy. And since you have your own brain and you...
Well, again, I'm just arguing that I'm trying to be explicit in what I'm saying, and so again, you're just saying I want to...
Oh, that's right. You went and looked at the term after this video. That's right. My timeline's fucked up.
Replace a silly word with a silly word, and I'm not. I'm saying I want to replace undefined language and already ruined language like quantum with language that's more explicit and more descriptive.
Words. You expect us to accept them as...
I don't expect you to... I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if we're going to be able to communicate, I'm not going to sit there and accept your presumptions and accept your axioms. So I'm not going to use words and vocabulary that has built into it assumptions and presumptions about what reality is.
But it doesn't. Locality, both of these words are very much about breaking away from our assumptions. You assume that everything must be local, and when we get into it, we'll find out you assume everything follows a realism as well. It's been clear because that's why you embarked on this in the first place, is a rejection of the fact that there was any dichotomy or stress between the two of those properties. It's proved very hard for people to come up with theories that preserve both of those properties, and we all want to. We all want to. All of our guts say that would be a good idea, so we're all willing to try it, but it just hasn't worked out. Those terms do not make you accept anything at all. They don't even make you accept that, there's a controversy. Just the knowledge of the reality of history should show you there's a controversy. The terms are meant to sort the controversy out, right? As it happens, I already know you are trying to make a system that preserves locality and particle realism, right? You're trying to make a system that in some sense, which with its magic fish, is more concrete than anybody's figured out, which would be a laudable goal many scientists have had, like Einstein, right? But you think you have it, and you even even if you had it, it's ridiculous that you would expect everybody to accept it just up front. You know, you have the system where the math's going to work out right. All we have to do is wait for the math.
So yeah, as soon as you start using Holy Ghost words, I'm going to say, no, I'm not using your religious concepts, okay? We're making an argument about the origin of species. We're not making an argument about the origin of the Holy Ghost.
Well defined, which I don't think so.
So again, you're saying...
But what you didn't explain is why the term locality is like the term Holy Ghost. And even if it were, the term Holy Ghost is useful in saying there is no creature like that. That description of that creature, the Holy Ghost, that doesn't exist. Why would that be useful when it doesn't exist? Because people believe in it.
It's not well defined. It has an indestructible mass or condition, and it can be polarized. That's it.
I have a feeling you're going to misunderstand that. People believe in it, and in order to tell them it's not real, you have to use the term. You have to describe the thing they believe in and say it doesn't exist. And if you have a term for that thing, then you can say the Holy Ghost doesn't exist and save a lot of time.
That's not explicit. It's pretty fucking explicit.
But I'm willing to accept them anyway, because when you're coining terms, it's a development process. So I'm just asking you to admit that I am honestly presenting the terms that I believe are useful.
Well, again, I'm not going to keep arguing with you with terms. The problem isn't that you're using terms, it's that your terms and the whole way you argue them have carried with them, this is proven fact. This is established fact.
No, the term locality, this makes you look really stupid, to be honest. The term locality is not a position. The term locality is not saying locality doesn't apply, certainly. If it said anything, it would, by its existence, would be maybe implying to not smart people that locality is a true thing and everything obeys this concept of locality. It's really invented because we don't know, but either way, it's just a term so that we can discuss whether our fish-based systems or our wave-based systems or our BBs and gear-based systems, whether they are what properties they have. People have presented systems that don't obey locality, like hidden variable systems in the pilot wave theory. And people have presented systems that don't obey realism, like the Copenhagen interpretation. Now, your system, since you don't want to talk about realism and locality, you hope to exist in a space where we don't have to address if your system adheres to locality and realism. And the reason for that is clear. Instinctually, you know you're going after realism and locality, and that is not going to work out for you because it's already got you relying on the idea that you can make the pattern with one slit, even though moving the other slit affects the pattern.
Well, maybe the establishment has accepted that mushy language, but I'm just going to say it's completely, I can't have a conversation about reality.
How is it mushy? You read it, you understood it. That's right. You haven't read it yet. Okay. In your near future, you're going to read it, you're going to understand it, and you're going to go, well, of course, non-locality is the stupid thing I'm trying to reject. Yeah, my system obeys locality. It's obvious the universe obeys locality. So that's not too mushy.
Accepting wrong axioms, because my whole point in having the conversation is to point out how the axioms are wrong. How can I possibly argue the wrongness of the axiom?
But the thing is, that definition is not an axiom. Okay, this is just how poor you are at logic, and why I say we should teach logic to kids in school, because you don't get logic.
Axioms if I must assume the existence of them. It's like me saying I must accept the existence of God to argue that God doesn't exist.
And also,
Well, how do you not do that? You expect everybody to accept your system and your terms, and that's not how it works. I'm sorry. To me, you look like just an ant wandering around trying to figure out, how politics works in the United States. You're totally oblivious to so many relevant facts right around you. I could see them right next to you, but you don't react to them.
to not mistake my position. Um,
I don't think I have misstated your position, and your position is, in my opinion, unfounded. It's not founded on hard evidence. It's founded on weak, mushy speculation in the woo-woo direction, in the direction of not something cause and effect, but something that somehow breaks the boundaries.
I do not think that you believe the game is more serious than me. You can point to it.
See, the word locality and the word realism in these contexts is about what are the boundaries. And you don't want to talk about that, and then you want to assume it, and it's just ridiculous. I think I'm probably going to have to do this in more than one video if I even make the complete series. This is just ridiculous. But I just couldn't resist, I don't want to watch an hour of your videos, okay, and a half an hour, and write a bunch of notes and then make a video. It's hard to get the fucking videos out. And there's other things. You're harassing me about being useful, and I'm like, you know what, it's time to get back into using the internet for politics, because I used the internet for politics for a few years, and then I was disillusioned by the Daily Kos experience. And then I just talked philosophy, and I did politics in the real world where you go out and help a candidate and things like that. And now I'm thinking, oh, yeah, maybe it's time to this medium as it's matured. And me, as I've matured, I think we're coming to a convergence. And here I am talking to you about this fucking bullshit when it's obvious that you just lie about things you know about my position to make your own position look good, not in general, but just to your audience that you get to lie to.
Well, I'm saying that the point is that I don't think you are appreciating, okay, in the sense that quite obviously seriousness I'm equating with how many dead bodies are on the fucking battlefield. So what I'm saying is I'm saying the war I'm seeing is a lot bigger than the war you're seeing. You're seeing a skirmish with Turkey or something, where I'm saying, yes, World War III.
Right, we're going to get to the immigration shit. I think will be relevant.
It's obvious I knew your whole defense was silly.
My whole defense of what was silly. So again, you're not even being terribly articulate here. What are you arguing? And again, a joke that travels through an entire video over the tiniest of typo is, in my opinion, a
not a typo.
Obviously, you can tell it was a joke and say, oh, that's being glib. And
it's being just totally breaking any continuity you thought that video might have had hope of having. It's like fake Sagan spending a portion of the last video he made to me just going, look at his funny face. Look at the funny face I made him make.
But see, the thing is, I didn't say look at the funny face, look at the funny face. You have no appreciation when people don't do those kind of things. You have no depreciation when they do. As a matter of fact, in this series of videos, I don't know, what is it, 3 hours to Brett Keane, an hour to Mr. Chris Anderson, and, a half an hour on what I said, treating us all as though we're equally terrible people, but you clearly show where you want to spend your time, which subject matters you prefer in your Mr. Serious, I only care about the important things. I say, go ahead and, make your videos to Brett Keane. Zen out on it. Maybe you can relax.
Just makes watching the video a waste of fucking time.
And you insult people in glib ways all the time.
Your face is a waste of time. Wait, I wasn't going to go there. I was going to continue to be friendly. Okay, reset, redate him.
Yeah, do it quickly. Fat ass. There, I'm done.
And that, I think, is fine. It's just a joke. It's not okay, the glib part where you're taking facts not seriously.
Well, see, again, you're going to keep arguing to me that these are facts, and I'm going to argue that, no, I'm the one who's actually right on the facts of the two-slit experiment, and you're wrong on the facts of the two-slit experiment, and so I'm going to keep finding it incredibly obnoxious for you to keep pretending that you're still on the factually correct side of this argument when you're not.
For example, you say that, you can't work with me on things that we agree on even, because other disagreements are just too big. That's glib.
It's not glib. That's like saying it's glib for, let's say you're a conservative economically, so all you really care about is that you really like capitalism, you're on a good capitalist game, and you're a Republican for that reason. And then you find out there's a bunch of racist guys who are on your side just because you happen to have a coalition, but they're just overt Klan members. And then you find out there's these religious kooks who want to control it.
The thing is, I'm not a Klan member. Fuck you. I'm not a Klan member. We're not talking about you found out somebody rapes babies in their basement. Those are particular things. That hasn't happened here. My uh, mind using and knowing about the term locality is not the same as keeping somebody chained in my basement. That's really, in a nutshell, the kind of liar you are. You're a huge liar. That's a huge lie. Making a simile between me and a Nazi or a whatever white nationalist is ridiculous because I don't have any characteristics like white nationalists. Not specifically or not anything else anywhere near as heinous. In fact, nothing heinous. All I have is a bunch of honest opinions and a non-physically threatening way of going about it. You don't have to worry about if I'm going to take a road trip to your house to harass you. I'll take a road trip to your house just to visit. So, fuck you and the pony you rode in on, and I think the only thing really good about you is that you take care of another couple people, your cats.
everybody's behavior
Fuck
because they have very
you.
small penises. And
I've
you're saying
had
you
enough
guys
of
are
this.
responsible for my
Maybe
cause.
I'll do more of it later, but this is just ridiculous. You're explaining to me why your behavior is okay because it's just like I'm like a Nazi. You're an idiot. I believe you can see that you're an idiot. So think about how idiot you are for a bit before you fucking come up with more of this stuff.